Specific differences between Indonesian and Malaysian Chinese can be seen from several aspects, although both have the same cultural and historical background. Here are some significant differences. Cultural differences. Local influence. Indonesian Chinese have a stronger local cultural influence, such as the use of Indonesian language and the adoption of local traditions. Meanwhile, Malaysian Chinese have a weaker local cultural influence, with the use of Mandarin and the adoption of stronger Chinese traditions. Traditions. Indonesian Chinese have more diverse traditions, such as the celebration of Chinese New Year, Cap Gome, and others. Meanwhile, Malaysian Chinese have more conservative traditions, such as the celebration of Chinese New Year and Qingming. Language differences. Language. Indonesian Chinese generally speak Indonesian as their main language, while Malaysian Chinese speak Mandarin or other regional languages. Dialects. Indonesian Chinese have a more diverse dialect, such as Hokkien, Teochew, and others. Meanwhile, Malaysian Chinese have a more dominant dialect, such as Hokkien and Cantonese. Historical differences. Immigration history. Indonesian Chinese have a longer history of immigration, with the first wave of immigration in the 15th century. Meanwhile, Malaysian Chinese have a shorter immigration history, with the first wave of immigration in the 19th century. Colonial influence. Indonesian Chinese have a stronger Dutch colonial influence, while Malaysian Chinese have a stronger British colonial influence. Social differences. Social status. Indonesian Chinese have a more diverse social status, with some Chinese groups having higher social status. Meanwhile, Malaysian Chinese have a more uniform social status, with the majority of Chinese groups having higher social status. Religious influence. Indonesian Chinese have a more diverse religious influence, with some Chinese groups practicing Christianity or Catholicism. Meanwhile, Malaysian Chinese have a more dominant religious influence, with the majority of Chinese groups practicing Buddhism or Taoism. Thus, the differences between Indonesian and Malaysian Chinese can be seen from several aspects, including culture, language, history, and social. Here are some other differences between Indonesian and Malaysian Chinese. Economic differences. Economic influence. Indonesian Chinese have a stronger economic influence in Indonesia, with many companies owned by Chinese groups. Meanwhile, Malaysian Chinese have a stronger economic influence in Malaysia, with many companies owned by Chinese groups. Business sectors. Indonesian Chinese have a more diverse business sector, such as textiles, food, etc. Meanwhile, Malaysian Chinese have a more dominant business sector, such as banking, property, etc. Educational differences. Education system. Indonesian Chinese have a more diverse education system, with many schools using Indonesian as the language of instruction. Meanwhile, Malaysian Chinese have a more dominant education system, with many schools using Mandarin as the language of instruction. Political differences. Political influence. Indonesian Chinese have a stronger political influence in Indonesia, with many politicians coming from the Chinese group. Meanwhile, Malaysian Chinese have a stronger political influence in Malaysia, with many politicians coming from the Chinese group. Political participation. Indonesian Chinese have higher political participation in Indonesia, with many Chinese groups involved in political activities. Meanwhile, Malaysian Chinese have lower political participation in Malaysia, with many Chinese groups focusing more on economic and social activities. Thus, the differences between Indonesian and Malaysian Chinese can be seen from several aspects, including economics, education, and politics.